Hello from Jonathan and from me. Welcome to the programme.
Well, first tonight, the election day plane crash that's put the UKIP parliamentary candidate for Buckingham in hospital.
Former party leader Nigel Farage had just taken to the skies in a light aircraft, pulling a campaign banner when it's thought the banner got caught in the tail fin, causing the plane to crash.
It came down close to the runway at Hinton in the Hedges airfield in Northamptonshire this morning. Mr Farage is now being treated in hospital for face and chest injuries. The pilot suffered neck and back injuries. Neil Bradford has our report.
Anyone could have imagined a last-minute publicity stunt that went so badly wrong. The plane had been in the air for just a few minutes when it attempted to land again, but instead of touching down on the runway at Hinton in the Hedges, it crashed in a cornfield alongside. The cockpit was completely destroyed in the impact and the engine sheared from the fuselage.
Well, looking at the wreckage, it's hard to imagine how anyone escaped a crash like this, but Nigel Farage was able to stand up immediately after being pulled from the wreckage. His pilot, though, had to be cut free by firefighters.
78-year-old retired engineer Albert Thomas witnessed the crash. He was on his usual morning cycle ride when the plane came down. He helped pull Nigel Farage from the wreckage and stayed with the pilot until emergency services arrived.
One of the chaps was trying to get out, and I helped get him out and stand him up, and I waited there for the pilot, you know, with the pilot until everybody come. He was cramped in the cockpit. He's got his legs twisted up, but they had to cut him out.
The pilot was flown by helicopter to hospital in Coventry, while Mr Farage was taken to an accident and emergency unit in nearby Banbury. He's since been transferred to a larger hospital in Oxford. His spokesman, who witnessed the crash, gave this update on his condition.
He's got some bumps and he's got some scrapes on his face. They're assessing him in the hospital at the moment for his chest as well. It's quite possible there's some damage there. Having seen the wreckage and seen the kind of plane it is, which is a two-seater plane, both men are very lucky to be alive.
The former UKIP leader and MEP for the South East is standing as a candidate in the Buckingham constituency, opposing the re-election of Commons Speaker John Bercow. He issued a short statement in which he said he was concerned to learn of this morning's crash and wished Nigel Farage and his pilot a full and speedy recovery. It's too early to say what caused the accident, but there's speculation the banner the plane was carrying became tangled in some way. Police officers have spent the day gathering evidence at the airfield and will pass their findings to air accident investigators.
The weather conditions are as they are now. The aircraft would appear to have been coming into land and on the runway that we're currently standing on. That's all I can say at the moment.
Nigel Farage will now spend the weekend in hospital, meaning he's unable to vote and will miss tomorrow's count in Buckingham. But no doubt that will be of little concern, considering he's walked away from this.
Well, we can now go live to Neil at Hinton in the Hedges airfield in Northamptonshire. Neil, it was serious enough, but it could have been a lot worse.
Yes, I think there's no question. This was a very serious air accident indeed, and both men are very lucky to be alive tonight. Nigel Farage is a politician who likes to have an impact, and he's certainly had an impact today for all the wrong reasons. This should have been a publicity stunt, a plane flying over the skies of Northamptonshire and Buckinghamshire as the polls opened this morning. Instead, it ended in near disaster.
Neil, just tell us a bit more about the plane, if you would, because it seems, just having a look at it, that it's actually got quite a good safety record, but we are hearing this evening that this particular plane may have been involved in a similar incident. Is that right?
Yes, it's emerged that back in 2006, the very same aircraft, a Polish-built Wilga fixed-wing aircraft, was involved in an incident while towing a banner. In that occasion, eyewitnesses say they saw the plane lurch suddenly, and when it landed safely, but there was damage to the right wing spar. Now, a cause for that accident was never found. Of course, there's nothing to suggest that the two incidents are linked, but certainly the investigation into today's crash will circle on that banner and whether it interfered in the aircraft in any way. And tonight, attempts are being made to move the wreckage to examine it further.
Neil, do we have the latest on Mr Farage and the pilot?
Yes, the latest on Nigel Farage's condition is that he has 2 broken ribs, chipped spine and damage to his sternum, but he's said to be in good spirits. As for the pilot, Justin Adams, his injuries are not as serious as they were first thought to be, but he's suffering from back and leg injuries, but certainly neither of them will be going anywhere in the next few days.
Well, good to hear that they're safe and well. Anyway, Neil, thank you very much indeed for that. Now then, have you voted yet? You've just over 3.5 hours, in fact, before the polls close at 10 o'clock tonight.
Our political correspondent Matthew Hudson is in Luton, which, since the war, has been a key indicator of the new government. Whoever wins Luton has been the party that gets into power.
So, Matt, an interesting day, a fascinating night ahead.
Absolutely, Jonathan. Luton, as you say, what they call bellwether seats. Luton South made even more tantalising this time by the sheer number of candidates. There are 12 of them from the main parties, smaller parties and a fistful of independents. These are seats that the Conservatives want to win on their way to forming an administration. They're seats that Labour are desperate to hang on to. Now, on my way down here, well, I did my democratic duty, and my colleague Natalie Gray has been taking a look at voting right across the region.
Voters go to the polls in what looks set to be the closest run election for decades. Turnout is predicted to be as high as 70%. Nationally, there are 50,000 polling stations, and there are some pretty unusual ones in our region. Perhaps the cosiest is in the bedroom of this bungalow in Chesham in Cambridgeshire. Retired hairdresser Carmelia Bond has turfed her son out of his room along with his bed to allow 2 polling station officials to move in.
I'm not the one that sits behind the desk. I just have to do the polishing and dusting and hoovering and get the place ready.
And just as homely, what about this polling station in this caravan in Merton in Norfolk? In Essex, people were hot-footing it to the Essex Dance Studio to cast their votes there. In Kettering in Northamptonshire, the Tourist Information Centre was the place to be, while in Wellingborough, porter cabins provided basic needs.
People who can't get around to the normal polling station, this porter cabin, it really does help.
In complete contrast, the lucky voters of Haddon in Cambridgeshire had more glamorous surroundings at the old rectory.
I think it's marvellous that we're using a private house, effectively, in a village of this size. I mean, lots of villages in this area, they've lost their post office, they've lost their school, they lost their pub, but here we are with 69 electors on the register. It plays a very important part in village life, and I think people enjoy coming to vote here.
Hayden Church in Norfolk was the pretty setting for this polling station.
It's very exciting. It should be the best election we've had in a long time.
I think it's going to be a very exciting election because I don't think anyone knows what the outcome is going to be.
It's thirsty work, this, but no such worries for the 400 residents of Scotto here in Norfolk because their local polling station is the pub. For landlord Liam Green, it meant just popping downstairs to vote. So you didn't have far to stagger today?
Well, I did actually. It was quite hard work getting out of bed and going downstairs. I got a bit of sweating on the way to the polling station, but it's not too bad.
And it looks like there's a bit of a racket going on at this polling station in Norwich. Let's turn back time now to 1970 when voting was also well underway. But what did children make of it all?
Why are you off school today?
Because it's election.
What about a floating voter? Tell me what you think it might be.
A person who don't know who's going to vote for.
What's the difference between Conservative and Labour?
One's horrible and one's nice.
Have you any idea what a swing is?
What I'm sitting on.
You've got until 10 o'clock tonight to vote, and just like then, it's fine to take the kids along too. Natalie Gray, Anglia News, Scotto in Norfolk.
So, Matthew, it seemed pretty busy there. We're expecting a high turnout, aren't we?
That's right, they're predicting nationally around 70%. Our region normally a bit higher, perhaps as high as 75% this time. And last time out in 2005, our highest was North Norfolk with 73%. The lowest, I'm afraid, was right here in Luton South, 54%.
And Matt, it's obviously going to be a very long night for you and a lot of others, but when can we expect the first results to come in, and when can we expect to sort of put some meaning on it, do you think?
Really very difficult to say, Jonathan. In our region, expect perhaps Basildon to be the first to declare at about 1 a.m. That's Government Minister Angela Smith defending a tiny minority. A majority here in Luton, they're talking about perhaps being about 3 o'clock in the morning. And there'll be seats like Waveney and the 2 in Milton Keynes, which might not be until 6 a.m. There's always recounts to take into consideration. And remember, there's a clutch of constituencies this time around, including Norwich South, Broadland and Huntingdon, which are not even going to start counting until tomorrow morning. So it could be well into the afternoon before we really know who's come out on top, if it's as close as everybody thinks it's going to be.
All right, Matt, thanks for that. I hope you've got the coffee and the matchsticks for those eyes as well. Well, ITV1 is...